Hello, everybody. Rob Gardner at DFS Today on Twitter here. You can also reach our team at Fantasy DGens on Twitter, covering our professional account level. If you've already watched the videos on free user access and the beginner level, you know what those levels have to offer. This video is going to focus on what you get by upgrading to the professional level, which is $19.99 a month for all 8 sports that we cover. And so I'm going to take you in here to our PGA dashboard and focus on what is cool about the roster generation tool. This top right-hand corner on every dash is where our roster generation tool exists. There's 3 things that you can do here with each player. First, the X over here allows you to move a play from the plays at the top of the list to the fades at the bottom. Before you set your exposure, you can come through pretty quickly and decide which guys you want exposure to and which ones you don't. And in a situation where you don't want exposure to somebody, you can just go ahead and click this X over here and go ahead and get rid of them, and they will pop off your screen. This allows you to get rid of extra people that you're not interested in and limits the number of people that you have to look at, and just allows you to stay organized as you're setting your exposure. The exposure is just to the left of that. It is a color-coded number that you can set in intervals from 0 all the way up to 100%. This allows you to look very quickly and get a feel for what your exposure is for a particular player, and it can be adjusted very easily. Then we have the tagging tool. The tagging tool is something that we think is pretty unique to us and pretty cool. For any player, you can go in and tag them in one of the given categories. These categories allow you to kind of go throughout your players and just decide which players are value, which are stars. You can go contrarian, contender, cut maker, a wide variety of options across each sport. You can even tag as weather. When you're done tagging, it's going to allow you to decide how many players you want of a particular tag in your actual rosters. Once you've got your exposure set, you can come up here and go to the roster gen tool. We'll go to the DraftKings one, for example, and we'll get this nice little interface here. Now, these 2 numbers at the top are a little bit important. They basically make sure that as you're setting your exposure, you're setting them in ways that are going to work with the roster gen. If you think about golf, a sport that has 6 roster spots on DraftKings, you have 6 spots at 100%. You have a total of 600% exposure that you can dole out. If you're over 600, then all of your percentages are going to be warped slightly down because it can't fit all of those people into the rosters. If you're under 600, it's going to be warped slightly up. It's not the end of the world if you're out of this number. Just know that it will have a slight impact on your exposure. Likewise, there is a salary balance number. This takes the exposure and also takes into account the salaries at a particular exposure. This is to make sure that you keep your balance with how much money you're spending. An easy way to think about this is if you had a bunch of players that were all above 10K and nothing else, you wouldn't be able to build rosters because you wouldn't be able to hit the 50K max salary. Likewise, if you had a ton of players that were only 6K and below, you wouldn't be able to hit your min salary because you wouldn't have enough high-priced players to fit. This calculates and figures out how close you are to getting in that mid-range so that it can healthily build lineups. When you're happy with where your exposure and salary balance are, you can decide how many rosters you want to build all the way up to 250. Once you've decided on your rosters, you can set the min and max salary that you want to do, leaving as much or as little space as you want. And then here's where the tagging comes into play. You could decide that you wanted exactly 1 value play in every single one of your rosters. By setting the min and max to 1 for value, it would guarantee that a value play was picked and put in every single roster that you build. Likewise, you could do this for any of the tags. You could even set them for a range. If you wanted 2 to 4 value players, you could do that as well. This allows you to do a lot of creative and constructive building. If you want to make sure that you have 1 high-priced player in every single one, you could put any of these tags as your high-priced player and make sure that you have at least 1 in every roster. We've had multiple users have success with this tool, including using this in creative ways to make sure that they are getting the roster builds they want. This takes roster building to a much higher level than just the traditional getting your exposure type building. Once you've got everything set, all you have to do is click the Create Rosters button, give it a few minutes to run its course, and when you're done, you will have a nice new package of 200 rosters built. But that's not where the fun ends. Once these 200 rosters are built, a screen will come up that will give you the ability to see exactly where your exposures are compared to where your target exposures, and allow you to label or delete specific rosters in your 200 set. Why is this important? Because we've also added the tools to edit entry files. For FanDuel, DraftKings, and Fantasy Draft, where you're allowed to edit the files that have already been built, you can go ahead and actually apply particular rosters to existing contests. This allows you to be lightweight and portable. Should you need to make changes for a last-minute withdraw from a tournament. Maybe you need to make changes because you've decided that you want to jump on a value play, or you just want to change your exposures 10 minutes before lineups lock. By having these features, you're going to be in a place where you can effectively change your rosters on the fly, download your edit entries file, and re-upload it accordingly. Once your roster built is done, you can kind of see over here exactly where your exposures are compared to where you set them. And then you can also go down to your individual rosters here. The cool thing about your individual roster is if you want to see all of the rosters, for example, with Robert Castro, you can go ahead and put Castro in here, and you can see every single roster that he shows up in. Label any of the rosters you want with specific names for when you want to apply them to edit entries rosters, or you can even come in and delete them individually if there are particular combos that you do not like. Once you're done with your rosters and you're happy with how they're built, all you have to do is click the download button to get a CSV file that will be portable to the specific site that you built the rosters for. Those are our roster gen tools. If you have any more questions, hit us up at DFS Today on Twitter or hit the team up at Fantasy DGens.